So you're a landlord and you want to increase the rent, so how do you do this in the right way? It's really important to understand how to increase rent in a fair and reasonable manner. While maximising return on investment may be appealing, you should assess the impacts on your tenants, ensure that any rent increases are justified. This guide will hopefully help you increase rent the right way while maintaining a positive relationship with your tenants. So what are the rules surrounding rent increases? Although landlords are generally allowed to increase the rent, there are rules and regulations that must be followed. Rents cannot be just raised during a fixed term tenancy unless there is a clause in the agreement that states a pre-agreed increase. Rents can be raised once a year in a periodic tenancy as long as the tenant is provided with sufficient notice. So, how can landlords increase rent? Here are the 4 most common ways landlords can raise the rent. So you could get the tenant to sign a new tenancy agreement. It's the most common way of increasing rent is by signing a new tenancy agreement with altered rates. It is the most straightforward way of increasing rent because there are fewer regulations to follow and landlords are free to adjust prices to reflect market value and cover additional costs. You could activate the fixed term increase. If a fixed term agreement contains a clause allowing the landlord to increase rent at a certain point during the tenancy, a written notice must be issued stating when the increase will take effect. The notice period should ideally be at least 2 months and both parties must sign a rent increase agreement. So you could reach a mutual agreement. So landlords can contact tenants to discuss potential rent increases. When taking this approach, it is crucial to be honest about the reasons for proposing a rent increase while also considering the impact on the tenant. If a deal is reached, a rent increase agreement must be signed to make it official. So my preferred way of increasing rent is serving a Section 13 notice. So if you cannot reach an agreement with a tenant, they may choose to serve a Section 13 notice. This is a more formal method of increasing rent and can only be served in a short-term periodic tenancy. The landlord must fill out Form 4 and serve it to the tenant, who may then accept or challenge the rent increase. If a tenant challenges a rent increase, it will be referred to the first-tier tribunal, which will consider the arguments presented by both parties before deciding whether or not the rent increase is fair. So how much can landlords increase rent by? There is no specific limit on how much landlords can raise rent. However, the government stipulates that any increases must be fair, realistic and based on the local market. A rental charge that significantly exceeds the local average rent of similar properties would not be seen as fair or realistic. So how can an estate or letting agent help you? Estate and letting agents play an important role in assisting landlords with increasing rent in a fair and reasonable manner. They research the rental market on behalf of landlords and recommend an appropriate rate to charge, as well as assisting in negotiating with tenants to achieve the best results for both parties while maintaining a positive relationship. So what are the final thoughts? So to ensure a stress-free and profitable tenancy, landlords must strike a balance between increasing rental income and maintaining positive relationships with tenants. After all, losing a reliable tenant because of an unreasonable rent increase could cost you more money than it's worth. Rules and regulations differ depending on the type of tenancy and the method of proposing a rent increase, so it is important to keep up to date with the latest legislation with the help of a trustworthy estate or letting agent. So are you looking to maximise your return on investment as a landlord? Come and speak to us. We're on 01253 627 111 or 01772 395 835 and we'll be more than happy to help.